20-minute keynote presentation about the facts about a constitutional convention. Before we get started, I am curious, how many people here are an undecided or a no vote for the Constitutional Convention? Do we have any of those? Because I was hoping we would have some. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your honesty. You know what? I appreciate that. And there are several people who swore to me they would be here who are not here yet. They'll probably come in as I'm going through my presentation. There were several people that I shouldn't say several, every person that I have interacted with in person, when you describe the truth about what's not being said in the media ads by the Defend Our Constitution people, virtually every one of them is, oh, that's actually not unreasonable at all. I would be for that. I would be totally for that. The people get their say 3 times. That's totally reasonable. But when you believe, yes, sir, in the back.
Okay, let me ask you a quick question, just clarification. This money that's being spent against the concept of the Constitutional Convention, which is built into our Constitution.
Correct.
And the only way to change the Constitution is the Republican Party spending money against this?
No.
I'm just curious.
No. Shockingly, no. We're totally grassroots, individual people contributing checks. That's it. No organizational money has come to us. But I'm going to cover all that in my little presentation. So I'm going to do my little keynote, and then Edna has a meeting she has to go to. She'll come up and say a few words as borough mayor. By the way, I want to acknowledge all of the legislators who are here tonight, but Borough Mayor Edna DeVries will come up and say a little bit, and then I've invited Kathy Tilton and David Eastman and Kevin McCabe, all of whom I want to recognize as being here, to come up and say a few words about why they are for and in support of a constitutional convention, because nobody sees the front lines and how corrupt things are down in Juneau more than our legislature. And I'm pretty proud of our Valley delegation. They are a bulwark against the insanity coming from other communities in this state. So that'll be the format. Then at the end, Edna will have to scoot fairly quickly after my presentation and what she has to say, but we'll do a Q&A, and I can address questions like what you just had, Tom, in the back. So without further ado, I want to get started. So 10 days ago, I debated Kathy Giesel at Baxter Elementary, the Basher Community Council meeting, and she left there and then immediately ran in her car over to the Turnagain Community Council to debate Roger Holland on the merits of a constitutional convention. And I'll be honest, I was struck with apoplexy because I was not ready for the volume of nonsense that she had to present. It took me by surprise and got me a little fuddled, and the format was atrocious. I had 5 minutes, or actually she had 5 minutes, I had 5 minutes, she had 2, I had 2, 5-minute Q&A. Virtually, I mean, you couldn't even peel the first layer of the onion of the garbage in that amount of time, but I did have, Dave Donnelly was there, and he in his words, I did quite well. Having said that, what I learned in that very short, truncated debate is the 3 pillars, the 3 planks of their sort of misinformation, if you will, just to use a word that everybody loves these days. The first is, it's unnecessary. That's what they say. And so they'll take a state constitution, and welcome, come on in and have a seat. Grab a snack and a drink if you'd like. So they'll take a state constitution and they'll hand it out to everybody in the audience. The first thing they'll do is they'll hold it up and they'll say, look at all the amendments we have passed since statehood. And if you can advance it just once. 41 times since statehood, starting actually, the first one was in 1966. 28 of those have passed, 13 have failed. And Kathy said specifically, she said, look, this is proof that our Constitution works. Look at all these amendments. What she neglected to say is that since the year 2000, since the turn of the century, only 2 have passed. And the last one was in 2004, 18 years ago. If you look at the state of corruption and the state of things, just look around in the way the state operates, in the way the state spends, in the way the budgetary process doesn't happen, our election system, there are so many things that just reek of corruption, and it never changes because no amendments ever make it through the legislature with a two-thirds majority vote to get onto the ballot. And so we're stuck in this gridlock, and this is why our founders foresaw the need for us to have a constitutional convention. Because if we got to this point, and they saw this with great wisdom in my opinion, if we got to this point we needed a mechanism to get around the corruption. That's exactly what a constitutional convention is. And the amendment that passed in 2004 was specifically on ballot measures. Can we move to the next slide? So, sorry, I thank you for your help. I came here with a remote that was supposed to allow me to advance slides, but for some reason it will not connect to that laptop. So this right here is your main problem, and this is one of the things that I think the left and the people who are, it's really a strange set of bedfellows between Republicans who say, I don't want a constitutional convention because things can only get worse, and the far left, which says, I don't want a constitutional convention because you'll ruin things for us. But one of the most fixable things we have is making our judiciary more accountable to we the people. In 1955, when the first convention was held, hi Susie, have a snack and a drink if you like. When the first convention was held, we consulted with a group of attorneys, and one of their great, glaring warning recommendations was that the Alaska Constitution had gone further than is necessary or safe in putting the hands of one of the levers of power, that would be the judiciary, out of the reach of democratic controls and in the hands of a private professional group. And what you find, if you actually look at what the judiciary has done, particularly since about 1996 in the case of Valley Hospital, is they have become radicalized and total political ideologues. And the way that we select Supreme Court justices, if you didn't know, is the Alaska Judicial Council, which is a very far-left organization. They get to nominate two people for the governor to pick from. So choose the lesser of two evils. And if the governor says, well, I like either one of those, well, then they have a set amount of time to come up with two more far left-leaning picks. And meanwhile, the Alaska court system needs its actual Supreme Court to get things done. So there's a pressure on the governor to pick one, but there's no pressure on the Judicial Council to nominate a centrist like, his name escapes me, out in Kotzebue. I actually grew up with the guy, Robeson, Frank Robeson's son, Paul Robeson. Interestingly enough, in Valdez, small kid, I know the whole family. Anyway, in Best versus Ulmer, the judiciary has seized power one of what's actually 6 times. Best versus Ulmer was a single sentence, 60-word amendment in a 12,000-word constitution. So imagine that, 60-word, one sentence out of a 12,000-word constitution. And this is a tricky thing that the Supreme Court did. They said, well, we think that's a revision and not an amendment. And revisions can only be done at constitutional conventions, so we're going to strike that from the ballot. It had gone through the proper channels, and it was one sentence concerning the rights of prisoners. Now, what's interesting is there's actually a definition of revision. It has to cover a multitude of topics, but this did not. The beginning of the sentence was concerning the rights of prisoners. And they just called it a revision, and it was struck from the ballot. Because what are you going to do? What are the people going to do? We behave as a collective society in Alaska as if the courts the Supreme Court justices are demigods. It's unbelievable. We've never impeached a Supreme Court justice. We've never dismissed one, and no one ever calls for impeachment on the floor, even if it would fail. Just imagine the signal that would send that, we've had enough. But regardless, in the Valley Hospital Association, if anybody is familiar with that case, and I don't have the language memorized, but I should. They basically invented, this is where they seized the power to make amendments themselves. They said, well, we think that the right to an abortion is the kind of thing that is encompassed in the language and the intent of our original Constitution, and we kind of have the right to make new laws when we think we should. Utter legal nonsense. Not a scrap of that is actually legally sound. They just wanted to, and so they did. And that's when they seized the power to actually amend the Constitution for themselves. Then later, and I think this was in 2004, they started demanding that the state pay for abortion funds, seizing the power of the purse from the legislature. And then later, Governor Dunleavy, and honestly, I thought this was very crafty of him. He vetoed the amount we spend on abortions from the court's budget. Genius. You pay for it. And they sued him. The line item veto is the governor's authority alone. And they didn't have the legislative votes to override his veto, so they sued him. And one of my biggest frustrations with the governor is that he just said, okay, and let them have their money. And it's so frustrating to me because that was a perfect opportunity. We all elected Mike Dunleavy to stand tall. And I was a big believer and I voted for him, I worked on his campaigns. And unfortunately, he just didn't stand tall in that instance. He kind of I think he got a little scared by his recall effort and some other things, and that was a perfect opportunity to have rallied the people who elected him around him. But I think on the advice of some people down in Juneau, he decided to go the other way. Can we move on to the next slide? Right, anyway, I kind of got that out of timeline there. But the need for a convention is obvious at this point if you actually look at the way our state operates. Is it expensive? This is the second plank of her campaign, and this is honestly the most laughable, or not her campaign, their campaign. She's just one of the co-chairs. But this is one of the most laughable ones. Ledge estimates are $17 million to conduct a constitutional convention over a 2-month process. For 65 delegates, $17 million. That's $261,000 per delegate. Only the state of Alaska could blow money at that speed. Truly, it's absolutely asinine in terms of its expenditure level. But what's interesting, I had a conversation with Mike Schauer today, and he could not be here, unfortunately, because he's got to make actual money flying for FedEx. The state undirected general funds is about $5 billion. The directed funds plus federal amounts to about another $5 billion to over $10 billion a year we spend. 17 million out of 10. I like to do this because it helps us normal working stiffs understand. 10 billion to 17 million is the equivalent of making $100,000 a year and spending 170 bucks. So imagine you make $100,000 a year as a family. Would you spend $170 if it could radically fix a whole bunch of problems? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? The state spends $30 million a day on government. 30 million, just get your brain around that kind of spending for the state our size. It's astronomical. Anyway, the actual percentage as protected is 0.17%, less than 0.2% of our annual budget. So is it worth the cost? I think it is. And the interesting thing about a convention is that it gives us the opportunity to actually fix things for the good of the whole people. Now, one of the things that the Defend Our Constitution crowd says is they throw out these radical straw men. We might restrict access to state lands. Rubbish. Absolutely rubbish. You think the people of Alaska are going to go, yeah, we don't need to be hunting and fishing. Nope. Lock that up. People shouldn't be allowed out there. That's not going to happen. Nothing radical is going to happen. Regardless, or some things that might be considered radical by the other political side of the aisle probably will not pass. Like, for example, a total abortion ban. Very, very, very unlikely to pass. Even if it would be great, it's unlikely to pass, and it's also unlikely to even come out of the convention because it's going to be the delegates' job to draft amendments that they think have a chance of passing. Requiring a balanced budget. These are the things that actually terrify the swamp. You have to balance your budget. You can't spend more than you make, or you go into debt and you go bankrupt and they take your house. So why should the state be able to just spend? I'll bet you, and I'm on record on video saying this, I'll bet you if you had an amendment that said the state's budget cannot exceed the prior year's revenues, how clean of a one sentence, simple. If you didn't make it last year, you're not spending it this year. That is such a clean, simple amendment. And I bet you the people of Alaska would be like, oh, that's reasonable. This is why they're terrified of a convention, because reasonable, meaningful reform can't get past the swamp to get onto the ballot for an amendment vote, but it can through the mechanism of a constitutional convention. Another one, repealing this ranked choice insanity that we're dealing with right now. 60% of Alaska wanted a conservative to replace Don Young, and yet here we are with Mary Peltola. We deserve it. We deserve it. I think hopefully her reign will be very short-lived, and I'm really hoping that the people, because I don't see Sarah Palin bowing out, and I don't see Nick Begich bowing out, but I do hope that the people who, for an ideological reason or another, said, I'm only voting for Nick, forget Sarah, or I'm only voting for Sarah, Nick's a liberal, or whatever they say. Everybody has an opinion, but they wouldn't rank the red, and because they wouldn't rank the red, we ended up with Peltola in there. And so, repealing ranked choice insanity, safeguarding Alaska against new taxation. This is one of the things they say on the radio. They say, whoa, you might get new taxes. You might get new taxes past a popular vote of the people. It's not going to happen. Hi, Sally. Feel free to have some juice and a snack. Come on in. Specifically new taxation. One of the things that I've heard described that would be a great benefit to Alaska would be requiring any new taxes be implemented by a popular vote of the people. So you can't just have a special interest be like, because this is what they do. They give out a little bit of money, and they create a constituency that then demands the money and then motivates people to go out and vote. So you're basically, in a sort of an abstract way, you're buying votes, and the state budget just grows and grows and grows like a cancer. Reforming the judiciary, which I covered in the beginning, is all that worth the cost of $170 on $100,000 a year income? I say yes, it is. I say yes, it is. And I think everybody on the Convention Yes Committee says yes, it is. And everybody who believes in this convention says yes, it is. Is it risky? This is the third plank. And this is interesting. I don't think that it is as risky as they're making it out to be. Is there some risk? Yes, of course there's some risk. But a convention is not what they're portraying. And this is what I find most interesting. A convention, the way they say it in the radio ads, is that what they love to quote this, and Kathy said it like she was saying Voldemort. She said, a convention would have plenary power to edit any and all parts of the Constitution. Plenary power. Like it was a magical word. And what's interesting is, yes, they could write whatever the heck they want to write. But everybody at that convention is going to have to agree this makes sense and it might actually pass and we think it's good before it goes there. And it's just the power to think it up and then pose it to you, the voter. They don't get to change anything. Nothing happens at a convention. A convention has no power. They have the power to write whatever they want. You have the power to write whatever you want at your kitchen table. It doesn't mean anything in Alaska is going to change. You have the same plenary power. The difference between the way they are portraying a convention and the truth is that everything that comes out of a convention goes back to the people of Alaska for a ratification vote. And that is not how they are describing it in the media, and it's disingenuous. So this is the order. We vote yes, the people of Alaska, and actually I didn't reference the rap cards on your table. Please take those with you and take an extra from the table over at the side for somebody you know who might be on the fence, or just to help me get the word out, because, like I said, we're being outspent 1,000 to 1. That explains that a convention is the voice of the people, not once, but thrice. We get to say, yes, we want a convention on November 8th. Then, over the following year or two, we're going to establish, the legislature will set the rules over how we establish the delegates and elect the delegates. Then we will elect the delegates. I'm of the personal opinion that should not be done with a campaign. Everybody buys ads and only the wealthy people actually get it done. It should be done in a town hall style, where you have an outcry, and the people who are able to carry a message and speak clearly and succinctly are the ones that the people in the room will be like, yeah, that guy, or yeah, that gal, she speaks well. And then those are the people that you send, because number one, you will know them as your neighbors, and number two, you're most likely to get people who are involved in politics and actually give a crap about the state and its future at those town hall meetings. So I think an outcry town hall setup would be the best way to elect delegates. And then the convention takes place, which is meaningless, changes nothing for the state of Alaska. And then they go back to the people to vote and ratify each change individually. Now, one of the things that Kathy Giesel said in our debate is that, well, they could require you to vote for everything or nothing. Here's why that will not happen, and a ton of analysis has been done on this. The point of a convention is to actually make meaningful improvements. Not just change, but improvements. If you lump everything together, your chances of getting anything passed plummet. They plummet, because each little thing that might be toxic to one person or the best thing in the world for the next will mean that everybody's going to find something that they don't like in all of the amendments proposed. As a rule, there'll be something, well, I don't really care for that. And that'll be a poison pill for everybody that votes. So it makes no sense for them to send all of the amendments back as an up or down. You either accept our entire revision of the Constitution or cram it, you're stuck with the status quo. That is not what's going to happen. And that's the ratification vote. So they'll be line itemed, in my opinion. I don't think it could go any other way. But I also think that it's worth it. Remember, there was a huge percentage of the population back when we fought the Revolutionary War who said, please, leave it alone. Give them their taxes. Leave it alone. Don't do this. But there were a few people who said, enough is enough. No. We have seen enough. We have been trod on enough. Our rights matter. Our voice matters. And so we fought the Revolutionary War, and now we have this great country that we're all slowly, like in slow motion, watching the train wreck disaster unfolding. But these radical ideas that they're using as straw man are very unlikely to pass anyway. These are going to be meaningful improvements. Next slide. Okay, so now let's talk about where they're getting all of their money. And this is what I find most interesting and a little revolting, to be quite honest. So, you've heard this name bandied about in media, if you're conservative at all or follow social media, George Soros. And then they put up a picture of a guy who looks like he should have died 15 years ago. And he's a billionaire, he almost bankrupted the Malaysian currency. The list of his egregious offenses are long. And guess who George Soros funded money? The 1630 Fund, him and another gentleman, he's I can't remember his name, I can't remember his name. Anyway, a couple very hard left billionaires started the 1630 Fund. And the 1630 Fund gave $500,000 out of DC to scare the people of Alaska into voting against a constitutional convention. Jesse?
Hey, so I have to ask, so ballot measure 2, part of that was the dark money provision.
Yeah. Oh, you know what it was? It was that you had to do this. This garbage right here. That was it. It just was something for APOC to do. That's how they sold it. They said, let's get dark money out of politics, and it's the only reason that it passed.
What I was going to say is my understanding of it is that it doesn't work. If you read the statute, it says that they must disclose the true source of the funds, which is, I can't believe it's constitutional, but you have to go back as far as somebody basically paid income tax to receive the money. It can't be.
Well, that's not how APOC is enforcing it. APOC's just making sure you have to list your donors on everything.
I have an advisory opinion from APOC that says otherwise. So.
Well, they're certainly not doing it for the Defend Our Constitution crowd. I can tell you, the contributors to the vote yes on one are individual Alaskans who have been here anywhere from 20 to their entire lives. And all of their funds are coming from out-of-state dark money, and interestingly enough, unions. The IBEW from Washington, D.C. doesn't want any change. NEA Alaska out of Juneau doesn't want any change, another union. American Federation of Teachers nationwide doesn't want us to change. The AFL-CIO doesn't want us to change. All of this money is coming from unions and out-of-state. It is not the individual working people of Alaska who look around and go, why are things so bad? It's not those people. It's out-of-state money that's doing it. Tom?
I get that, but being married to a teacher who taught in Alaska and Fairbanks for 25 years, okay, who's born and raised in the state, I'm not. And we've had this conversation over and over again. The problem is, and on a grassroots level, is the teachers keep putting these people who vote this way into positions of authority in the state, okay, who then turn around and support a national organization. So I agree with what you're doing here. This is a grassroots level thing that has to change. We have to change grassroots, local, before you can impact federal. But that problem right there starts at home.
Agree.
Right here.
Agree. Yeah, I'm not saying we're trying to fix national problems.
No, but I mean, the IBEW workers in this state need to revolt against the national organization. The NEA teachers in this state need to revolt against their organization. That's not going to change until it changes here first. And it needs to change in every state first. So that war needs to be cleared here before you're going to affect
that. That war's already been declared. I listened to CNN after Joe Biden's red-back truck, almost is the most Nazi-esque framing I've ever seen. The very next day on CNN, they were saying, we are at war with conservatives. These people need to be, or they didn't say eradicated, they said that we gotta hit them and keep hitting them, and we are at war. And that's the language they're using in the footing. And it's just right now the war is ones and zeros. That's all. Right now it's only ones and zeros. Can we go next slide? This is a David versus Goliath thing. So to date, we have less than 10, so they have $830 some odd $1,000 in donations to spend, and we have less than 10. It's more like about, right now I think it's maybe about $6,500. So what that means is that we are not going to be able to do outreach to Alaska via the traditional means, buying radio and television. Issue ads right now, because it's an election year and 59 out of 60 legislators are getting reelected. Issue ads and political ads are going for $100 an ad for a 60-second ad. They're usually $20. The money, you have to have their kind of money to buy traditional media. But I don't think we need it. I really don't think we need it. If each of you will commit to convert and proselytize your workplaces, go to your coffee after church. Don't leave. Go and talk to people about this issue, because that's the only way it's going to change, is if you actually activate yourselves. And I think conservatives are starting to wake up and realize you just can't keep your head down and work and everything will fix itself. You just can't. But That's the only way things are going to change. And with your support, and I am asking, actually, you'll see 2 QR codes on the posts here. There's a QR code over there and a QR code over there. We make it very easy for you to donate to help us get this message out. Non-traditional media is much less expensive than traditional broadcast, but it still is expensive. It'll take a lot of money to reach Alaska with a good message. But the first message we want to actually put out with paid for money is on the next slide. Remember to turn the mic on? Just one click. And
all across Alaska, on the airwaves and social media, the likes of George Soros and massive dark money out of Washington, D.C. are pouring hundreds of thousands of dollars into Alaska media because they're terrified we, the people, might take the wheel and fix what the legislature will not with a constitutional convention. On September 20th, PFD Day, state legislators put on cloaks, snuck into your bank account, and stole almost $1,000 from you and every member of your family.
That's your money, and no one is going to spend it for your benefit better than you, period.
And your government disagrees. And for 6 years now, since Bill Walker and Kathy Giesel and other legislators decided to just take your money, that's exactly what they've done. Because what are you going to do about it? Well, we elected Mike Dudley for that very reason, to protect the PFD. And he promised something that he could not deliver without a righteous legislature. And they've stolen our money every year since he's been our governor. Our legislature uses the PFD now as a crowbar to bend over the will of senators and their representatives.
Yeah, when the SWAT doesn't get their way, they will go to ridiculous lengths to take your PFD. They use time compression as a weapon. They take days to do what should be done in hours. They'll lock the doors and bar the doors of the conference committee room to prevent the sergeant at arms and the Senate president from getting them onto the floor to take a vote. That's the kind of level that they will stoop to take your PFD.
In the media, they tell you our Constitution works, but the legislature and the judiciary have a total conflict of interest to make sure no one ever modifies their ability to overspend, or kill constitutional amendments, or hold sessions far, far away, or play political football with your family's money. Remember ballot measure 2? Alaskans were all for getting dark money out of politics. But it turns out George Soros and other left-wing billionaires are here funding the no crowd.
Why would people who don't even live here spend $750,000 to make sure Alaska can't fix its own problems?
Why indeed? Because they own the status quo, and us working stiffs can cramp. They hate us, the people of Alaska. They don't trust anyone they don't own in one way or another, which is why they are lying about a constitutional convention. A convention has no power, none. All it is a think tank made up of people who are not allowed to be legislators, just regular people who want to be part of fixing things. And when a convention happens, those people who aren't trying to get reelected will make suggestions for our Constitution. That's it. They are proposed suggestions to you, the voters, who will decide whether to accept or reject any or all of it.
The opposition is describing a convention like some backroom surgery, where the Constitution is chopped up by some Dr. Mengele, and surprise, Alaska is stuck with the result. That is a total lie and a misrepresentation.
All changes go before the people to be ratified. The convention has no power in and of itself. It is merely a mechanism for the people to get amendments on the ballot for an up or down vote. It gets amendments past our politically radical Supreme Court and past the swamp creatures in our legislature who are beholden to special interests for their re-election campaigns and onto the ballot for we the people to have our say.
The Defend Our Constitution crowd cannot stand we the people.
They think they can spend your money better than you can. They think they can run the state without your approval or consent. They think they know better how to raise your kids. It is an arrogance on a scale we haven't seen since state. Well, now is the time to send a crystal clear message.
We the people have had enough.
We've had enough of this garbage in our schools. We've had enough of this government theft and spending spree. We've had enough of politicians treating us as if we are lucky they allow us to work and live. So when they tell you it's unnecessary, say,
I don't think my kids and their future are unnecessary.
and when they tell you to be afraid, say,
I'm not afraid of my fellow Alaskans.
and when they tell you it's Pandora's box, say,
No, it's the ballot box.
Find your courage, Alaska. Vote yes on one. On November 8th, vote yes for a constitutional convention.
So that is the ad that we want to push out across social media, via non-traditional media, all over Alaska. And I think it is an ad that implodes the narrative that they're spinning on radio and television right now. Like I said, everybody that I have explained basically those points to has converted before my eyes. They all were misled. In fact, Susie, who said, "I'm not afraid of my fellow Alaskans," was one of them. Where are you, Susie? You came in there. You are right there. Susie and Mike. If you don't know Susie and Mike, they have the goats at the Alaska State Fair and do the goat yoga. She's great. The goat milk is amazing. Anyway, on these corners here, these QR codes will take you directly to this page. You do have to fill out all of it in order for us to comply with our APOC reporting requirements. But please do, if you can, the state of Alaska, each person in this room got $3,200 today. If this matters to you and fixing things in our state matter to you, the only way we get this message out is with some serious cash, to be quite honest. Yes, sir.
Hey, who is raising the money on the other side? You're saying that these donations will be made with them. So your organization is called Alaska Watchman. What's the opponents?
No. The Alaska Watchman lent us. I'm the publisher of the Alaska Watchman. This is not Alaska Watchman. This is Convention Yes. We're just a group of Alaskans who want a convention to happen.
Who's against you? What's the name of
The Defend Our Constitution group, and they're also almost universally Alaskans. Weirdly, well, not weirdly, there's quite a few rhinos on there, and a whole bunch of hard left political activists. But all of their money, virtually all of their money, is coming from out of state in order to keep us to scare impressionable people via radio and television. So that's where it's coming from. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, when I raised my hand and undecided, I'm for this, but how do you plan on non-media and all that? Because whenever I approach anyone, they're not even freaking aware that there's a constitution convention to be voted on.
This is a national epidemic of ignorance. It's not just in Alaska. It's a national epidemic. Thomas Jefferson said to not be involved, I forget exactly what he said, but to not be involved in politics is to be doomed to be ruled by evil men.
Well, that's why I'm undecided, because, how are we going to get it out there before November 8th? I mean, how do you actually really plan on doing this?
By any means necessary. Yeah, money is really what we actually need to combat. Now, we don't need $850,000 to move the dial, and I actually believe we could probably get it done for 1/10 of what they have. But it's going to be really hard to get it done for 1/100th of what they have. So if you can donate, please donate. And if you can dig deep, please dig deep, because I don't believe you will be. I wish Mike Shower could have been here, because he was just on fire with me the other day. You will not recognize this state in 10 years when the chance to vote for another ConCon comes up. With ranked choice voting in there, and the entire legislature blue from the outcome of ranked choice voting, which is designed to elect middle of the road, slightly left candidates. That's what, and you see it's exactly what happened with Mary Politola.
Why is it, or is he in Anchorage, Craig Campbell?
No, Craig Campbell is the chair. He is in Anchorage. So we're doing rallies all over the state right now. There's a rally happening in Fairbanks. There's a rally happening in Keith Monternock's hangar in Anchorage, and then there's one at Paradiso's restaurant down in Kenai. So these rallies are happening all over to help raise awareness for this issue, distribute some of this collateral to people, and then arm people with this information and ask you to share this on social media. Can we have the next slide? So, please take a rap card or two when you leave. If you would, and I do ask you this because right now I have personally paid for everything. This Protect the PFD Vote Yes on One yard sign over there, take a yard sign if your yard actually has traffic. If your house is at the end of a 300-yard driveway and you have a beautiful spread with 10 acres, please don't put it on your lawn for the 6 people that are going to visit you between now and November 8th. Talk to your neighbors. Again, this really has to be grassroots, and it can happen. You have to have faith. You can't fall into despair, but you have to be willing to go up and just talk to people and say, hey, Where do you stand on a constitutional convention and why? And you're absolutely right. I have had that conversation at Target. I've had that conversation at Home Depot. And most people I talk to, they go, what's a constitutional convention? They're completely oblivious, living their lives and watching their Netflix.
Are we going to organize as this convention, yes, between now and November 8th? Are we supposed to do this on our own, just in our little groups?
We're going to reevaluate after tonight and see where we're at.
Okay.
The one thing I can ask you to do is to like our Facebook page and follow our content. And if you would, share this video. And so this is something that's interesting. Facebook and Google, and I know it because the business that pays for me is C3 marketing company, and I do web development for a living and have for 15 years. I know how to set up a website to have proper Google metrics, Google Webmaster Tools, and everything. We launched the Convention Yes website, submitted it, green checks all the way down, and you cannot find us on Google. You cannot find us. And it is so frustrating. Facebook is doing the same thing. They are throttling our content, and the only way that you can get past that I know of on Facebook, is to tag friends individually. So, hey, check this out, and then tag 99. I think they limit it to 99. Literally, I'm asking you to do this. Tag your friends. Between the people in this room, we probably represent 40,000 people or more that are in this state, just in our associated friend groups. If you were to tag those people with that video, it is, number one, it is free, costs you nothing, and it will show up in their feed if you tag and say, hey, I was there with so-and-so, and then list all the people. Ellie agrees. Ellie Rose, Crone, my beautiful goddaughter. Next slide. Another thing that you can do, and this is one of the things that is important and invaluable for us, because content creation, I mean, that was 2 weeks of intense work to make that ad, going around and videotaping everybody, putting together everything. Creating content is expensive and very time-consuming. But you can do it easy. Whip out your phone. Every single person in this room, I would wager, has a smartphone. If Edna DeVries has a smartphone and can do anything on it, none of you have an excuse, because she's awesome. She's texting out on her phone like crazy. Go to your phone before you go here. At the top, you see in the navigation at the top, it's news, who we are, join the cause, submit a video. You can click, when you first go to the website, it'll ask you, put in your email address and name, and we'll send you updates. Please do that so we can actually get a hold of the people that care. But when you click submit a video, you will have had to pull out your phone, and you won't do it on the website. You'll just do it on your phone and save a video. I'm supporting a constitutional convention because I think the state is corrupt. We haven't, whatever it is for you. Everybody has a specific reason, but save that video, okay? Whether it's 15 seconds or 50 seconds. We just got our very first video submitted the other day. It was exactly 1 minute, and he wasn't ineloquent, but he obviously is not like a statesman. He's just a normal guy who's like, yeah, I really think if we could fix this and this and this, that'd be great. And he sent us his video, and that is awesome. And it relieves us of the burden of having to find individual Alaskans who are willing to put their name and face out there and say, yeah, you know what? I think we should do this. But if we can get that momentum started, the beautiful thing about social media is that sharing that content is free. We can use what they've weaponized against conservatives against them by simply creating content in your own face, in your own voice, that says why you support the Constitutional Convention. So if you would, please do that. Can we go next slide? And most importantly, not only vote, but please just find people. I guarantee you, who here has voted and then talked to somebody who you thought there was not a chance they would have missed the vote. You talk to them, and they're like, I didn't get to it. I had a lot going on. Groceries. Groceries. I mean, it's mind-boggling how often that happens. It happens to me, and I like, did you grow a third head? Who are you? This is important. Get off your butt and go vote. Anyway, get people to the polls. You have to get people to the polls. You have to get yourself to the polls to vote. Share our news and content as these videos start to trickle in. I hope it becomes an avalanche of content. I really do. As these videos start to trickle in, we will share them. When you see them, share them. Tag your friends. Find out where your friends stand on this. And if they are a no, because they've been brainwashed by the traditional media, if they're a no, ask them to watch that and give you a meaningful response. Say, if we're friends, just watch that and then tell me why it doesn't make sense. That's it. That's it. The message really does, unless you are just die hard to one political side and you just can't imagine anything could ever be improved, that message gets through to people in the middle of the road. It does. And then there's two things. On September 29th, I don't have this on the slide, at the AlaskaWatchman.com at the top, we hosted a constitutional convention debate back in February between Bob Bird of Kenai, and 4 hours south of us, and John Cockhill from Fairbanks, 4 hours north of us. We met in the middle, and they had about an hour-long debate where Bob Bird unpacked. He is an absolute wealth of knowledge, legal knowledge. He's just a very, very good man, and the state needs people like him. But he debated John Cockhill and laid out all the facts of all the ways that the state power has been abused, judiciary's powers have been seizing power from the people. Watch that debate, and then on September 29th, Bob Bird and Lauren Lehman are going up against, I think, Kathy Giesel and one other person, but it's going to be televised from UAA on Alaska Public Media. So they're actually going to carry it and they're going to play it. So there's going to be another debate. The problem is, the debate panelists, I just find this so funny. The debate panelists are from the ADN, Alaska Public Media, and the Alaska Beacon. Nice representation of Alaska there. That's super hard left, mostly left, and super hard left. That's great. I'm sure the questions will be fair, and that's okay because you know what? Bob Bird is up to it. That man can whip out. No, that's actually Article 4, Section 2 says this, and they define actually who gets to determine the right to privacy. It isn't the judiciary; it's the legislature. And he's just a fountain of knowledge. And I think that after that is the end. Just one quick question. So before we do Q&A, I really want to give Ed a chance to say. Okay, all right. Well, I was trying to respect your time, Ed. All right, go ahead. Who had that? All right, go ahead. Who raising their hand?
For honesty's sake, I'm a libertarian. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. So I guess the question I have, and I will tell you right now, I have 72 employees in my practice. And I will create an opportunity for everybody to come and get lunch in my clinic and have this conversation and present this to them because I think it's important. But here's just a really stupid question. If I had to identify with one party or another, typically it's Republicans because they're more conservative than liberals. Having said that, why is the Republican Party supporting this? I didn't see them donating any money to this cause.
These are the questions that try men's souls. Tom, why are there so many wealthy Republicans out there who could throw $5,000 at this out of their coffee budget and haven't supported it?
Why isn't the Republican Party going after ranked choice voting on the airwaves and explaining to Republicans what not to do again to screw themselves? I listen to AM radio every single morning. I listen to the Dan Show and everybody else, and I have not heard one person come out and explain why they screwed this deal. And I'm just telling you,
it's frustrating.
Look, it's almost like you're fighting, you're trying to climb Mount Everest, and you've never climbed a mountain more than 5,000 feet high. This is insanity.
This is our one chance, honestly.
I don't doubt that.
If we don't get this done at a grassroots level, I do not believe you will recognize this state by the time we get the chance to do it again.
I agree. I don't think you're going to get another shot.
Yeah, go ahead. I agree, Tom, completely.
I just have to look at this and thinking either you're in on it, or we are actually what the Democrats say. We are the party is stupid. And that's just the way it is right now. So we get up
Self-described.
I have to go with it.
But now is the time. You have got to get off of your butt and be active. You have to find people who do not agree and talk to them. You don't have to browbeat them. Talk to them. Thank you, by the way. If you would show that video to your staff at a staff meeting, thank you. Who else here has the ability to influence? There is no reason. It's interesting. You may not know this. A church cannot get up and say everyone should vote for this guy. But a church can get up and say everyone should vote yes for this ballot measure. The rules on ballot measures are totally different. If you own a radio station and a TV station, you can say, yeah, I'll just give you those ads. Just run your ads. Totally free. Cleared that with APOC. Ballot measures are different than candidates. And this is a ballot measure, and it is totally fine for any group, any business, any organization, or any church to stand up and tell its members or people, please, you have got to not listen to the garbage on the radio and TV and vote yes for this, because this is the chance for we the people to stand up and make our voices actually count. In back. Well, I don't know which one of you, both of you guys had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so if you get the funds, are you going to be running these kind of ads on radio and or TV?
Like I said, it depends on the amount of funds we get. If we get $10,000, no, because we would burn through that in one night. So if we manage to raise, in these 4 locations, if we manage to raise $200,000 tonight, then yes, we will be on radio and TV, and there'll be a truncated version of that on Channel 2. But it will depend on the amount of money we are able to raise. It has to start with how much we have to spend, determines the places we can actually put our media.
Exactly, and the gentleman over here that was talking about, well, why isn't the Republican Party doing anything? It was the same thing with this ranked choice voting, is you never heard one opposition to that ranked choice voting coming from, again, the Republican Party.
Okay, here, I just want to give everybody a little reality check. You may or may not be familiar with this song. I'm looking at the man in the mirror. Michael Jackson, nailed it. Stop pointing the finger at what other people aren't doing. We have to do it. There's nobody here representing the Republican Party. No one. And they've always been an underclass. Far more with Republicans than I do with people on the left. But that saying, well, you should have done something. Why didn't you do something? Is not going to get us there. Donate. Whip out your phone, go to that QR code, and be like, you know what? I didn't let it happen. I don't know if you did, but I didn't. I didn't let it happen. That's the only way we're going to get it done, is when we stop this infighting. You know, it's interesting. I saw a magnet at the fair 10 years ago that has stuck with me. And it was a picture of Jesus on the mount. And he said, listen up, sinners. I don't want 36 versions of this in 20 years. That's what he was saying. And that's all we do as conservatives. We instantly turtle and find our little group to say, well, everybody else isn't being conservative in the way we want to be conservative. This needs to happen, and everybody needs to broadly support it and boldly support it, or it's not going to pass. And then what will we do? We won't be robbed of our complaints, because we'll be able to say, well, the Republicans didn't do enough, and the conservatives didn't do enough, and the libertarians didn't do enough. What'd you do? Well, I gave $20, and my wife and I belly-ached about it 6 times over the course of the month between this event and the election day. And it went down in flames. Like I knew it would. I get to be right, and the state gets to be screwed.
The purpose of my comment was not to throw the blame at the Republican Party. What the purpose of my comment as to asking why, if you're going to go on radio and TV, is that I happen to be of the older group, and I ain't on social media. I don't waste my time on all that crap. But I listen to the radio, and I watch TV, and we hear the ads from everybody else on the opposition, and that's my reason for bringing that up. And I realize it takes money, but I want to know, if we give the money, is it going to get out there on the airwaves, on radio, on TV?
If we have even a modicum of, so you don't know this about me. We just met tonight. And I wasn't trying to turn that back on you and say that the problem with everything is because of what you said. But that notion of pointing the finger is a cancer in the conservative movement. But you're right. Because we don't have the money, and honestly, the leadership of the Republican Party doesn't want to spend their money. But I can tell you for a fact, because I'll be the one actually placing the ads. I'm the one that's actually doing it for our group once we get the funds. I guarantee you, every conservative news station in the state of Alaska, if we can have the budget for even a little bit of it, we'll hear these ads. We'll hear radio ads. We already have a radio ad playing, donated, on stations down, 3 stations down in Kenai, and I think Tom Steigelman has it on 1 or 2 of his stations. But these large commercial stations, 650, 700, and 750, are all owned by large conglomerates. We're not getting any donations out of them, and we don't have the funds to buy it yet. But we will, I promise you, not $1 will go unspent of this in getting outreach to the people who will actually get to the polls and vote on November 8th. We're going to do absolutely everything we can. It's not going to sit in some vault and only get spent on Facebook if that was your concern. Because I do understand and empathize. The only reason I am on Facebook is because I have to for my business. I hate social
And
media.
every one of you can call Picaro. Use a friendly face. You can call Picaro.
Picaro's on the steering committee.
You can call in. I mean, if you're a Republican, call him. Every one of us should be calling in every day. I don't call Picaro much. Maybe I should, but Picaro, Michael Dukes, Dan Fagan.
Michael Dukes, Dan Fagan, and Picaro rail on this issue in support of the Constitutional Convention every chance they get. Every chance they get. But call in, just bring it up. These are all active things you can do. And again, a call is free. And it has even more impact than an ad because it sets the conversation off and allows you to actually start, my background is in radio, and the nice thing about talk radio is that talk radio uses the analytical portion of your brain, whereas music goes into long-term memory. So you actively listen to talk radio, so it actually changes people's minds. Whereas you put an ad on a music station, it just blows in one ear and out the other. It's not active listening. Go ahead.
This is really about getting out to people who are not in your bubble, though. I mean, that's
also true.
I don't disagree with calling conservative talk radio and talking about voting yes. I'm just saying that make sure that you're getting out of your bubble and talking to people who maybe aren't that active or don't vote all the time.
Agreed. This is the reason, most of all, that I ask that if you can, try and convert your workplaces and your church groups and people who, like most of the people in my church, hate social media. It's like a necessary evil. They'll post a kid picture once in a while, and other than that, get that garbage out of my life. And Mark Zuckerberg, get it out of it. So those are the people that you're going to reach in person on Sunday after church. You have your cup of coffee and you sit and you talk. Don't just leave and get back with your day. Spend 30 extra minutes just hamming it up and chatting with people that you know in your circle of friends, at your workplace. That's how we're going to actually get this done, because there are a ton of people you can't reach with non-traditional and traditional means. Candy.
A point that I've heard is that a constitutional convention would move forward with getting sheriffs in the state. And I know there's major strength of the importance of sheriffs.
There are so many things that I want to see proposed at a constitutional convention. I think it would be awesome if we had a sheriff for the Matsu, and a sheriff for the Kenai Borough, and a sheriff for the municipality. These are all things that are worthy of consideration, that, again, that terrify the opposition because they're reasonable, but what they do is they disjoint the levers of power from the way they've kind of settled in their sort of corrupt ways. Yes, ma'am?
So how do we get to that point? This is important. We need to get yes. I can take 5 of these and give them to my Bible study girls. But how do we start making a list of things we want to see done?
You just make a list. If this passes, and honestly, all of those efforts and all of that worrying are meaningless if we don't activate and get this done. So it's a multi-year process. So it's not like we vote yes on November 8th and we're holding a convention in January. We're going to have a long time where the legislature has to convene, establish the rules, then there has to be, however they establish the rules, those delegates have to get elected. So there's a long process for determining the kind of things that you want. And boy, you better believe a lot of people are going to have ideas. Yes, ma'am?
So in that process, well, on your slide where you asked, is it worth it? You mentioned it would repeal the ranked choice voting. So you just now said...
No, I didn't say it would repeal. I was saying that's one of the things that would easily pass.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be one of those things where we would bring up as a proposal.
Exactly. It would go back to the people for a vote.
And the sheriffs.
Yeah. Shall we be one person, one vote, one candidate, paper ballot, hand count? I mean, however that ends up being.
So that's where we discuss the PFD and the ballot.
Correct. All of these things that, see, everybody has an issue for them that's like, this would make Alaska better. And not better for just me, but literally better. And those are the kind of things that will come out of a convention, but the convention doesn't have any power to enforce or implement them. They go back to the people of Alaska for a vote, and that's a multi-year, many-year process. Edna? Are you? All right, I'll continue to take questions, but I don't want to steal you before you get a chance to say what you have to say.
Can you just clarify the debate that's coming up? What time is that?
I apologize. I think it is at 7 p.m. on the 29th of this month.
Okay, and how do you have to go to UAA Fairbanks?
No, it'll be on Alaska Public Media. So just go to Alaska, search for AK Public Media.
So
And
like Channel 7?
correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, they're carrying the debate. It'll happen at UAA, and it'll be it's a 2-person on 2, but again, the panel is wildly skewed to one side politically.
Thank you.
You may have already said this, but where do you find exactly this link so that you can be able to share it? Exactly.
Which link?
The one for the film.
Oh, the Convention Yes Facebook page. It's the most recent share at the very top.
Convention Yes.
Convention Yes. If you go facebook.com/Convention Yes, that's the name of the page. No spaces, just Convention Yes. Just write it out after Facebook.com/Convention Yes, and that'll take you there.
In that post at the top.
What's that?
In that post.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, and it's also going to be boosted. We have a little bit of budget to
I
start.
love your passion.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I also did not hear about this till recently too, so I appreciate it. I didn't hear it on the Dan Fagan show. I would have loved to. Also, there's the elephant in the room of people don't trust the voting system and the outcome of that. That's another elephant that we have to face.
It is. It, honestly, it's
get my friends to
it's
vote.
so frustrating.
Twisting arms. It's
Yeah.
like we gotta keep doing this. We gotta keep
Honestly,
fighting for it.
here's what we have to do. We have to vote more than they cheat.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
It is. We're fighting the giant. We really are fighting the giant.
Until we actually get the levers of power and can make meaningful election reforms happen, we have to literally outvote their shenanigans. That's the only option we have, which is why apathy is so dangerous. The worst thing you can do is just be like, the system's rigged, we're screwed, I'm going to get groceries. That's the worst thing you can do. Yes, sir.
You know where you can accomplish election reform? A constitutional convention.
Yep.
You're darn right.
You mean like that ID when you vote? Like
Whatever delegates put
Race.
together and agreed to.
I know, it's just it's the straw man.
You need a damn one to get a fishing license in this state.
Yeah, you gotta have an ID, get an aspirin.
Yeah.
It's insane. Okay, I don't see any more hands, so I'm gonna give the floor to Edna. Edna DeVries, if you didn't see, go back. This just for your own edification. I'm sorry, Edna, I'm gonna put you on the spot here for a second.
Okay.
You have never seen someone run a meeting better than Edna. Somebody was browbeating Kevin McCabe, and hour and 16 minutes on Politadick's website. Watch it. It'll make you laugh. Edna.
I know, I'm like all of you, I have an arm's length worth of things that we could change. But today when I was thinking about it, I thought, to me, maybe the two most important ones, and I'm pro-life, I'm pro-Second Amendment, all of that, 90% of you in here know me very well, is move the capital. The judicial, changing the judicial. Because if you change those two things, then all of the other things will fall into place. And so we did have Senator Schauer, I think about 2 months ago at the School of Government, and that is on the archives on the School of Government for the Facebook if you want to actually hear him talk about the Constitutional Convention. And so we have a workshop tonight with the Department of Natural Resources on the Moose Range and the Jonesville Management Plan, and so I need to go and do some testimony there. But thank you guys for all turning out. Yes.
Senator, can I ask you a question? And this has to do with mechanics, and Jake, you may be able to help with this, and then I'll shut up and never ask another question again. I tend to talk a lot. Let's say yes for Constitutional Convention passes. Okay. What guarantee do I have, and everybody else in this room who votes in favor of that, that the elected official that will come and represent me and everyone in this room is not a politician who has an ulterior motive?
Right.
And that is a big deal. And I'm telling you what, I will not support this and donate a dime until I know that who that person represents is the people and not the politicians in Juneau.
I can speak to that.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, because the politicians are the ones that's going to decide who's going to be the delegates, I think.
That one requirement is actually in the Constitution. They are not allowed to be elected representatives. They will get elected as delegates, but they can't be. You can't step down from one office and say, okay, I'm going to be an elected
So
representative.
it gets back to my question. Who gets to nominate the person that represents the people in this room? Is it the politician who represents these people?
No, you do. Voters do. Voters do. There's no you only get one nominee and you either vote or not. The people who are going to run or want to be a delegate, so Tom, to answer your question, this is why we need to pressure our legislative body to actually do them town hall style, as opposed to, we'll pick you and you got 50 grand you can throw at it to be a delegate because, whatever. If you do them town hall style, everybody shows up, and the person who can carry the message and actually does speak the clearest and to the largest group of people are the people that's the person who gets chosen as a delegate.
But that sounds like that's going to be local in every district.
You're damn right. 65 of them across the
So
country.
my point is, some of those districts, you're just going to send a wannabe politician who's going to preach the party line. So you're going to be fighting them when you go to
It's going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight. Yeah, but you can't. To speak to your point, though, you don't. The nomination process doesn't. That's not how it works. Delegates literally will run. They will either run in a town hall style or they'll run in an election style. You'll pick them.
For me to throw my weight behind this, I just need to know how the mechanics work, because I'm not going to throw weight behind a system that is so rigged against me that it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Sure. Yeah.
Run. I'll vote for you.
Be a delegate, Tom. You can carry a message. Okay, so she's out. Trail of leaves behind her as she goes I want so badly to be a delegate. I really do. The next thing I would like to do is ask, and whoever's closest, I guess you, Kathy, you want to come up and tell us why, I don't know what it is, whether it's the corruption you've seen, or why you are here, or how much you support this, or what, but just let us know why you are in support of a constitutional convention.
Right. Thank you everyone for being here tonight, and thank you Jake and all across the state for putting on these rallies, because this is where we failed with ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We failed as a society, as individuals in the state of Alaska, because we didn't take it as seriously as we needed to. We didn't know what we didn't know, and we didn't get involved. I didn't know, I'll be honest. I didn't know what it was going to do. I didn't know how bad it was going to be when we implemented ranked choice voting. And what happened here in the state of Alaska, my understanding, and that's all if you believe in elections, 3,700 votes passed ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
So, when we just write absentee, so I don't know how you feel about that, but I know how I feel about it. So what I'm saying here tonight is, what is scarier? Is it scarier to you to have people go to Juneau, for your legislators to be in Juneau where you can't get to them, where you can't have conversation with them, you can't see what they're doing?
Yeah.
Or is it scarier to vote for a constitutional convention where you can be in charge? So what I'm saying is that what Edna said earlier, move the legislature to the road system. I have to ask myself, am I more afraid of voting yes on a constitutional convention, or am I more afraid of having my legislator away from me for several months at a time in Juneau where I can't even go? Most of us can't afford to get there. Now, I'm not saying that all legislators have a problem being there, but you know what? I know every one of them wants to be in there. Every one of the Mat-Su delegation, I can speak for us. We want to be here in our own districts with our own people, and we want to be representing our constituency. We don't want to be far away where we can't even get there. When you talk to people who live in other states, they're like, what? You can't even walk to you can't drive? You can't have a conversation face-to-face with your legislator? So I ask myself again, and I ask every one of you to ask others, are you more afraid of your legislator being holed up in Juneau, or are you more afraid of voting yes on a constitutional convention? Because I'm going to tell you, at a constitutional convention, you can make the change where your legislators sitting right there where you can drive to them. And that is a big deal to me. There are several things, several reasons why. I've lived in Alaska since I was 18 months old. I've never considered even voting yes until this last couple of years. I've been in the legislature. This is going on, well, longer than I want to say. Maybe I think this 12 years, including my staffing time. And what I have seen as we have gone down the road is the likes of Bill Walker vetoing the dividend, which started all of these challenges that we have right now today. And we get to Juneau and we can't even organize into groups because we have this political football going back and forth, and we have people vying. More important to them to have a position than to be true to their morals and their values and who they are and representing the constituency. So, again, I say to you, what is scarier? To vote yes for a constitutional convention, which we just learned that the things would come before us. We have several checks and balances on that. Or to let it continue happening, what's continuing to happen where the legislature, we can't even get to the issues that we need to get to because we're infighting about the dividend, which there should be no fight about. But that goes to our judiciary. Our judicial system, broken. Thank you, Lloyd. It's broken. The judicial system said, the PFD is an appropriation. It's not a transfer. It's an appropriation. And it's up to the legislature to decide how it fits into the budget. What? There's a statute right here that tells us how we're the formula of a PFD, what that statute is, that statutory PFD, and it's not that hard to figure out, folks. But we had a governor who made a decision to veto it, and it's forever changed the face of what's going to happen with our PFD. And the only way to protect that now is to consider putting that into the Constitution. And how do you do that? Because, Jake's right. How do we get 2/3 vote in the legislature? It's almost impossible right now. I had a constitutional spending limit revision. Constitutional spending limit, and it had exactly what Jake was talking about, that in the years of deficit spending, you don't get to come back and spend more the next year. That's ridiculous. Who gets to do that? I don't get to do that in my budget. Oh, I spent too much last year, so I'm going to spend some more next year. What? So that was in the constitutional spending limit that I had put forward, and that was a few years back. I didn't even file it this last year because I wasn't going to get heard the way the legislature is right now. And I'm not saying this is about every single legislator. There are great legislators. We have them here in the Valley, but it's the legislature as a whole. You've seen lots of things happen where the Mat-Su, and I'm just speaking out of the Mat-Su, where the Mat-Su hasn't received the proportionate shares of funding that the Mat-Su should have, as far as capital budgets and fixing our roads and that, and considering that our population is one of the fastest growing populations in the state of Alaska.
The only.
Thank you. The only growing population in the state of Alaska, and proportionately, some of the people maybe in the leadership aren't happy with some of our opinions and our voices and our votes, and we don't get what we should get. We can change those kinds of things. And so there are lots of reasons why this year, unlike past years, and past every 10 years, get the opportunity, I would not have voted yes 10 years ago. But this year, I'm saddened by where we are right now. I'm sad to have to stand here and say this because I am a legislator, I am a representative, and it really breaks my heart that I can't represent the constituency the way that I want to represent the constituency, and that I have to come forward to you and say, in this day, the best thing that you can do right now is to contribute to this cause, because we have to get ahead of it. We don't have to have more money. We probably won't get more money and get ahead of the other group. But take a look at who the other group is. It's pretty easy for me to make a decision. Actually, I don't even have to look at issues. I can just look at the funders and go, oh.
They're not from the state.
Not from our state. Same like RCB. Not from our state, the funding for that. So, when I left to come here tonight, like many of you, you have children, you have grandchildren. I have my little grandson, and he was born at 29 weeks, 2 pounds. Probably weren't sure if he was going to make it, but 79 days in the NICU, and now he's 18 months old, and he's running around, and he didn't want me to leave. Kissed his little face, let him sit on my lap in the car, because there's nothing more that he likes than to drive. But you know what? It's not for me. It's for them. It's for the future. And we have the opportunity in our hands right now not to mess it up. So I'm going to say to each one of you to really dig deep and say, what is scarier? I say vote yes on the Constitutional Convention, and to talk to the people that, you know, yes, we need to get to the people who we don't, not talking to ourselves like Todd said in the back. You know, it's easy to talk to a crowd of people sitting here where, you know, we know most everybody's on the same page. But, you know, today I had a conversation with my daughter-in-law. She didn't even know what Constitutional Convention was. I don't blame her. She's in the next generation coming up. So thank you to the younger folks. Have conversations with the younger folks. Have conversations with the seniors. Have conversations in your churches, wherever you can have a conversation. And think again to yourselves, what is scarier? A vote of yes where you have ways of being able to check and balance those things that happen through your vote and through the the opportunity to decide on who the delegates are, and through a vote on whatever comes forward. And
But first things first.
But first things first, yeah. Oh, I'm going too far. But first things first, the checks and balances. Share this information. Vote yes. Talk to folks. And you know what, folks? We only have ourselves to blame if we don't get involved. I know everybody's been digging deep into their pockets for every issue, and I get that. But I say that this is an issue of a lifetime, because it's going to be 10 more years before it comes back around. So I'm just going to really, really ask you to ask yourselves if you can help, however you can help, and just vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's wonderful context. Look at how society has changed in 10 years. Think. I mean, it's no kidding, right? Well, we're off a cliff. But I mean, just think back to 10 years ago. The kind of things we were concerned about are just like laughable now. I mean, imagine 10 more years at this rate of decline. You wouldn't recognize Alaska. Who's up? You want to come down, Kevin?
Sure.
Yeah, real quick. Has there been any polling on where you stand right now on this issue of passing statewide?
There has not. We have not conducted a poll. Again, polls are expensive.
I understand, but is there any word out among the sphere of...
Oh, has the opposition conducted a poll that they're like trotting out and bragging about?
Yes.
I don't know that they have. It wouldn't surprise me. They've got to erase $800 and some odd $1,000 somehow.
How long ago did this become a ballot issue?
It goes onto the ballot automatically every 10 years. I did the debate with the Alaska Watchman in February to try and get the conversation started.
So I would just tell you, I'm being honest, I feel like I'm one of the most ignorant people in this room. When you texted me, you know, it's a ConCon conversation, I'm like, ConCon. And you explain this, Constitutional Convention. The first thing came to mind, we're talking about a national constitutional convention.
Yeah, Article 5.
Which requires 36 states to approve it.
We're getting there.
Well, I get it, but I'll tell you how ignorant I am. When I came here tonight, I had no idea this was an Alaska issue. That's how stupid I feel right now. And I'm not a stupid guy.
If you didn't know, that's one of the most talented and sought-after spine surgeons in the Northwest.
So I'm sitting here going, holy crap.
Yeah, this is the battle we're fighting. This is the battle we're fighting. And I'm so glad you came, Tom.
Thanks, G. Thanks, boss, for your words.
For those of you that don't know, Kathy Tilton is a minority leader. She's been awesome for this last session for those of us in the minority. When I was growing up, probably much like many of you, my family said no discussion of religion or politics at the dinner table. Thanksgiving, we can't do it. Dinner, we can't do it. As a consequence of that, we are where we are right now. The apathy is rampant. You didn't know. You didn't know the Alaska Constitution. We've divorced civics and Alaska history and American history from our schools. People don't know. They don't know that it's in the Constitution and we get to vote on it every 10 years. For that reason, the outside money thinks Alaska's a cheap date. Ranked choice voting was a social experiment put on by 4 or 3 billionaires in the 1630 fund because we're a cheap date. We could be had for a couple $1 million and the experiment, as far as they're concerned, worked. They're doing the same thing right now. Right now they've co-opted Kathy Giesel, Bryce Edgman, Bert Stedman, all those people in the legislature that don't want you to have control of your government. Article 1, Section 2 says this government belongs to you. Not me, not the legislature, but you. I've said that since the first time I ran. It's not my vote, it's your vote. And if you want me to change it, you call me, you send me a message, enough messages, and I change my vote, regardless of what I feel personally, because I'm down there to represent you. This is your chance. This is your chance to make a difference. This is your chance to elect somebody that's not a politician, hopefully. We have some suspicions that some of the folks on the other side that are not running again are doing so that they can be delegates, such as Sponholtz and some others. Don't know that that's true, but that's been some discussion. So now I know what Jake wanted me to talk about is some of the, I won't say corruption, but some of the pressures that a legislator feels in Juneau to sort of lever the way things happen. When I first went down there, the very first year, the budget took 4 special sessions. We finally got the budget done. In that budget was some funding for projects in the Matsu. Thought, great, this is awesome. But to vote for those projects, I would have had to vote for a $1,000 PFD. I told my constituents, and they told me that I would not do that. So I voted no. Even though the projects were Matsu projects, this is how they leverage it. I mentioned on the video about the conference committee and the power that the co-chairs or the chairman of the conference committee has for the budget. This is why I voted yes on concurrence, because I didn't want to put it back in his hands. He gets into the conference room and they're working on the budget and they have a Senate floor session that they're supposed to attend. And they don't want to. They want to work on the budget. They want to take your PFD essentially. So they lock the doors. Well, the sergeant at arms found the key and went and opened and called them back in. So next time that happened, they didn't only lock them, but they blocked them. They actually barred the doors. They took one of those stanchion things and put it between the handles so that the sergeant at arms couldn't get into the conference room committee. That's the level they will go to keep their power, to take the money, the PFD money, or to fund projects that shouldn't be funded. So that's the kind of corruption that, and corruption might be the wrong word, but that's the kind of coercion that a legislator feels when it comes to the budget, when it comes to voting on anything. They will put things in there by amendment or somewhere else into a bill that will cause you to say, yeah, should I vote on this? But what about this? So those are the kinds of things that we need to solve in the Constitutional Convention. My personal belief, the judiciary violates our Constitution every single decision, just about, it seems. What's to stop them from violating the new Constitution if we pass this, what's to stop them? So it's going to be incumbent on us, the legislature, to send a message to them. Jake brought it up earlier. I think there's been one judge impeached in our entire history, and that was for, I think it was for unlawful conduct. So perhaps we need to get to that as a legislature and impeach a judge for not following the Constitution. And there's a process for that. There is a process for it, and it's in our Constitution. So maybe we need to strengthen that process. We could do that at a constitutional convention, but we absolutely must reform the judiciary. The way it's selected, it's called the Missouri Plan, if you didn't know, and even Missouri doesn't use it anymore. So maybe we need to get back to electing judges, making them more responsible to the people. I don't know, any of those things are up for grabs in the Constitution. And that's what they don't want you to do. That's what they want us to do. So I urge you to spread the word. I think I put it on 15, my wife and I put it on 15 or so websites, that video this afternoon. So I appreciate your attention. And with that, I think I'll turn it back to Jake.
Thank you, Kevin. We are in a dogfight. Representative Easton? Yeah. You get your back clean up, sir.
Hey, Jake. Bible tells me not to make decisions out of fear, not to have a spirit of fear when I go into vote, when I go into make any kind of decision. So don't hear me telling you that we ought to have a spirit of fear and that's how we ought to make this decision. I've heard actually folks on the other side say, no, you can't vote for a convention because you need to be afraid of this, that, and the other thing, all the things that are going to happen if you pull that trigger. I've also heard people on our side of the aisle making arguments like, if we don't pass a constitutional convention this year, that's the end. There's civil war, get the guns. I don't think that is the argument I want to make either. There are things that we can and should be doing politically. Understanding the Constitutional Convention is one of those things. 10 years ago, I voted yes for a Constitutional Convention. And I'll tell you, my district didn't vote yes. Statewide, it lost 2-1. In my district, it lost a lot more than 2-1, actually. Very conservative district. I think that year, we voted to get rid of all the judges, 20 some of them. We also voted to not have a constitutional convention. A lot's happened in the last 10 years. I'll tell you, as the legislator who put forward a bill on a constitutional convention, perhaps the only one since the first constitutional convention, I don't know of any others, I feel somewhat obligated to be here and be part of the conversation. There is a lot of work to be done. And I'm proud of Jake and others for having events like this to help us get that work done. And to work through all sorts of things. Some of the things we understand that we need to figure out, and then as we go along, I think we can figure out there's other things that we need to think about. We need to figure out those too. A wise man once said, the strength of the Constitution lies entirely in the dedication, determination of each citizen to defend it. That was Albert Einstein. And I still believe that is true today. And as much as people are wanting to join and defend the Constitution through events like these, through a constitutional convention process, other things, I want to encourage that. I want to support that. There's some pitfalls, but we can deal with that along the way. I think education is where we need to start. So absolutely, let's get the word out. How do these things work? What are the things we need to be talking about? What are the things we need to be thinking about? Sort through the information and misinformation, all that's part of where we're at today with information warfare. I'll tell you, I really liked that first slide where you talked about some of those court decisions. Because when I, as a legislator, look at the Constitution, it says you've got 2 ways to change the Constitution. The legislature can do that at any time and then ratify. The Constitutional Convention can also do that at any time and then ratify. It could happen today with your voting yes. It could happen in January with the legislature voting yes to have a Constitutional Convention. That also could happen. And yet the Supreme Court in the first decision that was listed on the slide, decided that the Constitution was wrong. In the Constitution, there should have been a veto for the Supreme Court. When I write a constitutional convention amendment or a constitutional amendment, and I am passing that through the legislature, and I send it to the people for you to ratify, the Supreme Court decided, arrogated power to itself on its own whim, that they should have a veto in that process at that point. And so, when I do draft a constitutional amendment, I've drafted a couple of those, I get a memo from the legislators' attorneys with every single amendment, no matter how simple, no matter how small, no matter how short. And the memo is to send, basically a form letter at this point. And it says, well, there's a Supreme Court decision. The Supreme Court said, your constitutional amendment might not be constitutional. And we don't really know if it's constitutional or not, because the Supreme Court didn't tell us why your amendment would be constitutional or unconstitutional. We're not sure. So before you go and ask other people to vote on your constitutional amendment to change the Constitution according to the way the Constitution said, you should know that it might be unconstitutional. That's where we're at today. That is the level of insanity. And the other items on that list weren't any better. I mean, you got the Valley Hospital decision on that list. That is where the Supreme Court of this state, the majority of which is only 3 people, by the way, stated in writing, you can go read it, added something else to the Constitution. They said it is their job as the Supreme Court to create constitutional rights. To add things to the Constitution without going through the processes we were just talking about. No constitutional convention they have to go through. No amendment through the legislature they have to go through. They can't, in fact, they say it's their job, it's their responsibility to help the Constitution along. As a society, we're evolving, we're finding out new things, we're progressing, supposedly. And it's their job to update the Constitution through reinterpretation. So that is where we're at, and where we're at is not a good place. And there are some examples about, all the things that shouldn't be happening that are happening today. So thank you very much for coming, for being a part of this, for asking me questions. Hopefully we can be part of getting you those answers and helping people understand the critical time that we are in today. Sitting on a bus isn't going to do it. And I'll tell you, what I heard earlier about the Republican Party, don't blame the Republican Party, exactly right. Don't blame the Republican Party. And don't expect them to do anything better next time. Don't. And I can tell you, so as a legislator, I wear the legislator cap. I'm also the chairman of Alaska Conservative Leadership. I really own the outfit that was running ads a few years ago against ballot measure 2 for one thing, and then also against the automatic voter registration through the PFD. Did I feel like maybe the Republican Party should be doing that? Yeah, I did. Did I expect them to? No. So, did I have $50,000 to run ads with? Nope, didn't. We had a couple bucks, we spent a couple bucks. Somebody had to do it. I think it's going to be incumbent on all of us, in whatever way we can, to make sure we get the word out on the issues that we care about. Obviously, this is one I care about. I want to get it right, so I want to work with you to do that. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, bottom line, this is a very important issue. I thank you all for coming tonight. Please mingle if you have any other questions. Come talk to people. You one more thing, Tom?
I told you I wouldn't say anything else.
Lies!
Here's the takeaway thought for everybody in this room. Okay? I'm a Christian. I make no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I don't apologize for it. And as a libertarian, I don't force my beliefs on anybody else. Okay? But here's a simple thought. Okay? If you are a duly representative of a community, okay, and you are doing your due diligence to represent that community, you should have no fear of a constitutional convention. Okay? If you fear a constitutional convention, you by definition have something to fear. Okay? Take that thought and run with it. Because that, in essence, is exactly what our founders in the country, and I think the state, who basically based the Constitution on the founding principles of this country, represented. It is, you represent, these people that we elect represent us. And when they quit representing us, we need a mechanism to take that power back away from them. And I applaud you and any other legislator who is willing to basically forego your elected position and trust in the people who elected you to basically say, we know more as a body than you do as a single person. And we should have an ability to represent that, and that's exactly what you're doing. And I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Tom, and thank you for coming tonight.
So for those of you that don't know, when Sarah Palin first ran for governor, she had zero money. She did it all through, pretty much through groups like this, home meetings. So I'll volunteer. I'll be the first to volunteer. I'm sure most of the legislators, the Republican legislators will. But if you want to have a home group meeting with people, your neighbors, your church group, your Bible study, and you want to have me to come talk, Kathy is nodding her head. I'm sure she would come talk. I bet Jake would too. I'm happy to do that. I think we're all happy to do that. So it might be an idea to do it sort of grassroots like this.
Thank you, and yeah, absolutely. If you are, so I'm speaking on October 8th at the Matson Republican Women's Club at Matson Family Restaurant. If you have events where this information needs to get out, please know, I guarantee you there was someone statesman-like enough to get this point across and help you share this information with your groups. Yes, sir.
My PO account of the camera is not being activated for some reason, maybe it's a dead spot. Is there a place we can kind of go to and then do the process steps to be a donation?
Yeah, so if do you have a smartphone, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, if you pull out the camera on your smartphone.
I did, it doesn't work.
Oh, it's not working on your phone? Okay, yeah, so just go to conventionyes, no spaces.com. And then on the right is a big orange button that says donate. Okay. That's it. I'm sorry, the QR code isn't working for you. I tested it before I went on. Oh, I see. Your internet's shoddy. Got it. Sorry. Yeah. I didn't think about that. Yes, ma'am.
How much does it cost to put an ad on?
So,
a 1 minute ad.
Okay, so a 1 minute ad right now, which is what we have because the APOC disclosure is like 9 seconds at the end because of ballot measure 2 last round. It's $100 right now to put an issue ad out on one of these commercial stations. So it's $100 for 30 seconds. Just light $100 bill on fire. Now, it depends on the station that you're on, but you're going to reach anywhere from 10 to 25,000 people in prime time listening times. But it's $100 an issue ad, at least on iHeart and on Alpha. Any other questions? If you can donate, please donate. Every one of you got $3,200 today. If this has any meaning to you, if you think this is important, please donate. Please talk to your friends and family. Thank you for coming and giving us 2 hours of your evening, and I'll be around for as long as anybody wants to talk after the fact. Thank you again.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Please like and share. You know the routine. Hit that like button, hit that share button. More Alaskans that we get informed about the Constitutional Convention, the better off we are going to be. And while you're at it, go to my website, Politadick.com, click that support button. Your proceeds made it possible for me to be here today. And let me tell you, it was a haul to get out here. This place was a lot of switchbacks to find and locate, but I made it, streamed it, and now it's your turn to like and share it. So let's get that done, and let's do it right now. Have a great evening, and I'll see you tomorrow night at the school board meeting here in the Matsu Valley. From my understanding, those that didn't get to testify the last time are going to be testifying today. And since we didn't hear to the opposition to what was going on there, I'm sure they're going to be the ones filling the room tomorrow night. We'll see you then.